When you're in a relationship or you come to a place where you're making friends with somebody, you're getting close to people moving in the opposite direction that you're moving. They're moving in an opposite direction morally, ethically, financially, maritally, relationally, in the way they take care of their health, all of these things. They're moving in the opposite direction from you are. And so we need to be aware of our values so we know how to respond to their values. Now, this is why parents freak out. Listen, if you're a teenager, you're here today, if you're still living at home, this is why your mom and dad freak out so bad when you start making friends that they have never met before. When you bring the boy home, he's the new boyfriend, you bring him home for the first time, he's having supper, and mom and dad are looking at your boyfriend with this blank stare. It looks like he fell face first into a tackle box. They don't know what to make of him. They just don't know what to do. It's obvious. Their values in their home are different from the values in our home. And so mom and dad freak out a little bit about the person that you're bringing home because here's what you need to know. Friends influence the direction of our lives. Our friends influence the direction of our lives. I'll say it again. Our friends influence the direction of our lives, whether good or bad. And so all of us have some story to tell how we just made new friends. There were some new people that moved to our neighborhood, and we kind of hit it off, and we became friends. We started hanging out, and when they met mom and dad just freaked out. They freaked out because it was obvious by the way they looked that their values were different than the values that we have in our home, or maybe they're people that have been in the neighborhood or in town for a long, long time. They got a reputation, and mom and dad know their reputation, and I don't want their kid hanging out with my kid. And all of us got some story where mom and dad, they moved because it was the only way to get you to break up with him or with her, so they had to move. Or they started saying, I forbid you, no more phone calls, emails, texts, whatever the case is. And it's an amazing culture that we live in today because mom and dads don't have to freak out anymore. Because I had a dad tell me this not very long ago. They have a teenager in their home, and their teenager has a smartphone, and dad has a smarter phone, okay? Because while their student has a smartphone, dad has purchased this app and pays a monthly fee. And they can track every tweet, every Facebook post, and every text. And they just know it on their smarter phone. So their phone is smarter than their teenager's phone. And anyway, so that's just kind of the way. I know you're wondering, okay, how do we get the app, Pastor? I don't know, okay? You can spy on your kids today. So this is why people freak out. This is why your spouse freaks out when they see you hanging out with certain people, because they can see that your life is coming very close to the life of somebody else, and the values are so different because friends influence the direction of your life. Now, here's what can happen. We get attracted to somebody. When we get attracted to somebody, we will show that person or that group of friends affection. And when we begin to show that person or that group of friends affection, all of a sudden we feel acceptance. And where there's acceptance, there's affection. Where there's acceptance, there's affection. And that's why a lot of people get into trouble. You wonder why people get involved in the whole gang thing. It's because there is a certain element of acceptance within the gang that they're not feeling when they're at home. Mom and Dad, if you want to keep your daughter from feeling acceptance from the boy at school that's going to ask her to compromise your values, then you need to be proactive in accepting your student at home. Mamas, you need to do the same thing with your son, because if you don't tell your son that you love him and that you lavish some affection on your son, he's going to go find a girl that will. Married couples, let me just tell you, if your spouse doesn't find acceptance from you in the home, they're going to go find somebody that will give them that acceptance. Because where we feel accepted, we show affection. Where we feel acceptance, we begin to show affection. And when we start to do that, we'll make compromises that we would never otherwise make. For instance, think about this. Think of your first cigarette, the first cigarette that you ever smoked. You probably weren't by yourself unless you were 8 years old, sneaking out behind the house because you found mom and dad's and there was nobody else around. The first time you smoked a cigarette, the first time you did drugs, the first time you were drinking and got drunk, the first time that there was some premarital sex going on in your life, it was because you were with someone or with a group of people that showed you acceptance. And when you felt that acceptance, you started making compromises to your morals, to whatever guardrails there might have been in your life. And so the first time you indulged in that, I'm telling you, your friends influenced the direction of your life. that relationship that was really horrible. There was this guy that just accepted you. There was this woman that just accepted you. You knew from the onslaught, from the get-go, at the very beginning of the relationship, this is not the person I want to spend the rest of my life with, but I feel acceptance from that person. And you know how the whole relationship ended, and you wrote the book and made a T-shirt and got a video and a whole country western song about the whole thing, right? And if this morning you wish you could sit here and tell people, yeah, exactly what Pastor is saying is right on the money. The amazing thing is that because of the acceptance that we feel through friends, even as followers of Jesus Christ, what was sin a moment ago can no longer be sin for us when we are under the influence of our friends. It was wrong just a little bit ago. Now it's perfectly acceptable, and I'm going to indulge in it, and I'm going to do it because friends influence the direction, not only the direction, but the quality of our lives, whether good or bad. Friends influence the direction of our lives and the quality of our lives, whether it's good or bad. Now, you wouldn't argue with that. None of us would argue with that. We just know that that's true because we can look at the friendships we got right now, and we'll tell you whether they have influenced us positively or negatively. And so here's where we're going to go this morning. If you want to turn in your Bible, in just a moment, I'm going to put the verse up here for you. It's found in Proverbs. Proverbs is a book written by the smartest man that ever lived. God blessed him with wisdom. His name was Solomon. We're going to be in Proverbs chapter 13. Proverbs chapter 13. Now, here's the incredible thing about what I'm about to share with you this morning is this. Even if you're not a believer this morning, just somebody promised you that if you come to church with me, I'll buy a pizza or chicken after church today, and so just come hang out, and you profess no relationship with God whatsoever, you're not even sure if the Bible is true. Listen, what I'm going to share with you in just a moment is a principle that it just works. Even if you don't believe the whole Jesus thing and all that kind of stuff, there's so many principles in the Word of God that are true and they work. And you say, I don't believe the Bible, so I'm not going to read the Bible. Look, you can't believe everything you read in the newspaper or the National Enquirer, and you don't believe everything that you watch on TV, but you still read it and you still watch it. Open the pages of the Bible and start to read, and you'll find stuff that you can implement and put to effect in your life right away. So Proverbs chapter 13, verse number 20, look what Solomon says. Here's what he says. Walk with the wise and become, say it with me, wise. He says, for a companion of fools suffers harm. Now, this is an amazing verse because in this one verse, you have both a promise and a warning. You get a promise and a warning. If you walk with wise people, you become wiser. If you want to be smart, now there's a difference between being smart and being wise because smart people still do unwise things, right? Okay, if you want to be a wise person, you hang out with wise people. So this morning, I'm hanging out with wise people, and you're going to listen to everything that I say this morning, and you're going to do it because you're all wise people. And everybody who is wise this morning says, yes. Yes, are you wise this morning? Say yes. I'll give you one more chance to proclaim your wisdom. Here, okay? Everybody wise this morning? Say yes. Okay. Now, here's the warning in the verse. It's an amazing warning. For a companion of fools, you don't become foolish, do you? If you want to hang out with fools, you don't become foolish, you suffer, say it with me, harm. Now, who amongst us wouldn't want to be a wiser person? I think we would all want to be a wiser person. The promise is if you want to be a wiser person, you got to hang out with wise people. You can hang out with fools if you want to, and I'll tell you what a fool is in just a moment, but if you hang out with fools, you're going to suffer harm. Now, wise people, here's what makes them wise. Wise people know that all the dots in life are connected. They just get this. Wise people understand that all the dots in life are connected, that they understand that the way I handle my finances today is going to be impacted in the future. They know that how I take care of my physical body today, I'm going to reap the consequences for it in the future. How I handle my marriage, how I raise my children, how I deal with money, all of these things, how I handle myself morally and ethically at work. If I don't want to have to tell lies and make up stories later on, it would be better for me to be honest today. They know that everything in life is connected. That is a wise person. They understand that every choice, every decision that I make today has a consequence tomorrow. So that's a wise person. That's what the Bible is telling them. And so it's all connected. Now the warning is that if you want to hang out with wise people, you're going to get wise, but if you hang out with fools, you're going to suffer harm. You become impacted by the behavior of the fool. The problem that comes in their life because of the unwise decisions that they make is going to have an effect on your life. I know. The whole relationship thing. You're in a relationship right now. She was cute, or he drove the car, or he had a place to live. I needed a place to sleep. Whatever the case might be. And you just, and then pretty soon your affections got involved. You fall in love, or you fall in lust, whatever the case might have been. And he has an ex, she has an ex, and they've got children. She's got 2 or 3 exes, and there's children by all of them. And this is not really the way I want to go in life, and all of a sudden you've got this allegiance and this alliance with him or with her, and as a result of that, you got exes knocking on the door at night, where's the child support, and it's the whole custody thing. I'm telling you, you will suffer harm. The Bible says you want to be a wise person, you hang out with wise people. Now, I got a story to tell. I remember back, this is prior to coming to faith in Jesus Christ. So for those of you watching at home or listening online, whatever the case is, I want you to know this happened a long time ago before I became a Christian. So I want to qualify this story. But I want you to understand that even as a teen growing up, there were guardrails in my life, and those guardrails were created by and large by the standards of morality and behavior and conduct that were lived out by my parents. Mom and Dad, you might not realize this, but your students are watching you, they're scrutinizing you, they're listening to you. I'll tell you what, you're creating guardrails in the lives of your students, whether you realize it or not. Now, one of the guardrails in our home was there was no alcohol. Not that my mom and dad were like anti-drink, that whole kind of thing. It was just there was no alcohol in our house. That was just the way it was. No booze. There's no booze in the cabinet. There's no booze in the fridge. So, without realizing, Mom and Dad set up this guardrail. Now, one night, I'm hanging out with my friends right here in Williston, North Dakota. We're driving around in my friend's 1977 GMC Jimmy. It was a great time. We're driving around town, probably getting about 8 blocks to the gallon, driving in that big thing. And we pulled up one night with some older friends, and the driver of the vehicle I was in said, "Hey, Brett," I'm not going to use last names because he might still live in Williston. "Hey, Brett, will you buy for us?" Now, if you're a teenager, Mom, Dad, you know what "will you buy for us" means. It's not like we're scared to go in the grocery store. We were at a different store, okay? And Brett says, "Sure, I'll buy for you." And so Brett takes the cash, goes into the establishment, and while he's in there, I'm sitting in the back seat, and I got my 2 friends up in the front in the Jimmy, and I said, "Guys, I just got a bad feeling about this." Now, it's not that we were angels in any stretch of the imagination. Don't get me wrong here. I just said, "Guys, I got a bad feeling about this." When they look back at me, "Well, what are you talking about? Feeling bad?" You're just kind of a joy sucker, whatever the case might be. And so we got our container of beverages. Well, we had to have a place to consume our beverages. And so we went over to this apartment building over on the east side of town. I don't know if it's still there or not. And it's a single-level apartment building, so when you open the door, you're right there in the parking lot of this place. And so everybody's over there having a great time consuming their beverages, and myself included. And one by one, they started leaving the apartment, and pretty soon it's not a party anymore because I'm all by myself in the apartment. And so I set down my beverage container. Notice how I'm keeping this so generic, right? Pepsi, okay? And I walked outside, and the moment I opened the door, there was this bright light. What do you like? You've been there. You saw the bright light, didn't you? It was nighttime. There was this bright light shining in my eyes, and it was a big, long, bright light, black, and there was a shiny badge here. And all of a sudden, who are you? What's your name? How old are you? Where do you live? Where do you work? Yada, yada, yada. And I'm looking around for my friends because they're not outside waiting for me. And as I looked around, there's all these cars with flashy lights on top. They're all sitting in the back seats. Because I didn't take my beverage container outside, I got to go home scot-free. Whew. And I'm thinking, you know what? Now, this sets up another principle. This whole night, I'm over the guardrail, and I'm thinking, what, Mom and Dad, they're going to find out about this whole thing, blah, blah, blah. I'll just tell you something. If you're a teenager today, you can probably fool your dad most of the time. Your mama knows everything, okay? All the time. You'll never fool mama, okay? That's just the way all the mamas are clapping. You just never fool mom. And be sure of this. The Bible says in the Old Testament, you can be sure of this. This is from the Bible. You can be sure of this. Your sin will find you out. It's always going to get discovered unless you say something. So I thought, well, I know how to handle this. I just won't say anything to my folks about it. Yeah, that'll take care of the problem. So I didn't say anything to my mother and dad about it. They're none the wiser until my mother is reading the newspaper one day, and she gets to this place called For the Record. She says to me, there are some interesting names in the paper. She knew the names of my friends. I said, oh, really? Yeah, do you know anything about this? No, nothing about it at all. I'm telling you, church, if you want to hang out with fools, you're going to suffer harm. You can get right to the edge, but it's going to happen. And you'll say, you know what, I would never do what they'll do. I'll never do what they'll do. You know what, I would never drink and drive. I would never drink and drive. But if you hang out with the people that do drink and drive, you're going to suffer harm. I would never text and drive. In fact, I know that the people at Life Church Assembly would never text and drive. Never text and drive. But if you go riding around with people who text and drive, the potential for suffering harm is there. I'm just telling you, if you want to hang out with the fools and the people that are going to do this kind of stuff, you're going to suffer harm. It's not that you become more foolish. It's just that you're going to suffer harm. I'm not going to do what they do. The fool, now understand what the fool is this. The fool is the person who knows that what they're doing is wrong. They just don't care. You can't educate them. You can't educate them. You can't give them new information because the fool will never say, oh, I didn't know that. Well, thanks for telling me. I'll stop drinking. I didn't know drinking could hurt me. Oh, I'm so glad you told. Texting and driving, I could get into an accident. I never thought of it before. Thank you for telling me. The fool says, I don't care. I'll just keep doing it because I can keep doing this over and over and over again and nothing will ever happen to me. That's what the fool is. The fool says, I know the information. I've got the information. I've read the book. I got the CD. I heard the sermon. It doesn't matter what you say. I'm just going to do what I'm going to do anyway. They live as though life isn't connected. And if you want to hang out with that kind of a person, you're going to suffer harm. Now, you could tell a story, couldn't you? You all got a story just like I told a story. You've all got a story about how you got involved in this relationship with that guy, that girl, this situation, that job. It was this deal. And you could tell the story. And we think that we could be the exception, that it wouldn't happen to us. We just think it won't happen to us because we're kind of fatalists that way. In fact, I don't care even if you're an adult. We can all revert back to our teenage years. Remember when you were a teenager? You could do anything and you would never get hurt. You could jump a motorcycle over a barn and land on the other side on two wheels and not be hurt. I mean, you could do anything when you're a teenager. And as an adult, we're no different. I can get into this relationship. I can get into this business deal. I can make this ethical decision. I can do this, and I won't get hurt. But this morning, you're sitting in the sanctuary going, Pastor, why didn't you preach this 6 months ago? I could have avoided a lot of problems if I would have just heard this. Now, if you want to hang out with the friends who don't care about their lives, listen, they don't care about your life either. If they don't care about their marriage, they don't care about your marriage. If they don't care about their health, they don't care about your health. If they don't care about the way they handle money, they certainly don't care about the way you handle your money. If they don't take care of their own physical bodies or their morals or their ethics, they're not going to care about yours either. And as I'm talking, faces are coming to mind, and you're going, how did he know? I didn't know. God knows. And that's why he inspired Solomon to write the words that he's writing in the Bible. This is a principle. Now, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go through, I'm just going to give you 5 guardrails this morning. If you want to take out your bulletin, there's room for notes on the backside. If you want to jot these down, that's up to you. Whatever you want to do. None of this is out of the Bible. It's just good, basic meat and potatoes kinds of principles. Mom and Dad, while I'm sharing some of these guardrails, please do not look at your teenagers, okay? You're just going to make it a long drive home, okay? That's all you're going to do. This is just for you. These guardrails are for you personally. These guardrails are not to be written down and used against other people in your household, all right? So these guardrails are these are just for you. So here's the first warning guard, and the guardrails are this, that when you bump against this guardrail, as soon as you bump against this guardrail, you go, oh, I got to get back on the road. Because if you ignore these guardrails, the potential is you're either going to go over the edge of the bridge, you're going to crash into oncoming traffic, or you're going to go rolling down the side of the cliff. All right? So here's the first warning guardrail you need to listen to. Is your group of friends moving in the same direction you are? Is your group of friends moving in the same direction you are? When it comes to their values about life itself, about marriage, about money, when it comes to their moral values or their entertainment values or their spiritual values, for sure, are their values moving in the same direction as your values? Now, This is a little plug right now for our life groups. This is why it is so important for you to get involved in a small group. Because I know all of the temptations there are in Williston, North Dakota, to get involved in groups that have different values than yours, but they are accepting of you. What I want you to do is get involved in a small group, in a life group at Life Church Assembly of God, so that you can get connected with a group of people who has similar values to yours. Because look, I know what it's like. Some of you are far away from home, you're all alone, and you know what you want to do? You want to get connected with a group of people who will accept you. Who will accept you. And you'll just make a compromise as soon as you find acceptance in that group. And it might be a poor group of people to get connected with. Not because they're bad people, but because their values are different from your values. And so I want you to get connected with a small group in our church so you can share similar values. This is why it's so important for you to get connected that way. Again, look, I know what this is like. You will make compromises. Wherever there's acceptance, there's affection. Wherever there's acceptance, there's affection. And unfortunately, we will look for acceptance and affection in places we have no business going. The second guardrail is this. Do you act different when you're with different people? Do you act different when you're with different people? Now, this is not like married couples can understand this a little different because you know how it is? Maybe over the holidays you went back home and when your husband got together with all his brothers, you had to spend the next 7 hours traveling back home to deprogram your husband because he reverted back to that whole. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about this. I'm talking about when you are with different groups of people, do you act differently? The person that we all see on Sunday morning, is that the same person that you are on Friday night? Or are you a different person because you're with a different group of people, so you act differently? Look, when you're in church on Sunday morning, I want you to be honest and true to who you really are. Now, what I'm about to say might have some consequences, but if I want to know who you really are, you know what I can do? I'll go to your Facebook page. That'll tell me who you really are. Now, a bunch of you are already on your smartphones going, unfriend, unfriend, unfriend. Okay, I know how that whole thing's going. Look, I surf Facebook, and sometimes I go, really? Wow. But I think the person I see on Facebook is the person that you really are. So I could ask you, if you're bumping against the guardrail of do you act differently when you're with different groups of people, that should be a warning to you. That should be a warning. You're bumping a guardrail, and if you go over that guardrail, you're going to have some problems. That should bother you. And here's the unfortunate thing. Insecure people, you'll change to be accepted. If you're an insecure person, you'll change just to be accepted. You'll become whoever you need to be with whatever group of people you need to be. And moms and dads, I know if you got students in your house and they're followers, that reality and that fact scares the liver out of you. It scares you to know that your child is a follower because you're afraid of the compromises that you'll make. But some of you, you talk different, you act different, you use different lingo, different language. I love this one statement. I remember this case in point when I was a youth pastor in this church. This was great. I would hear sometimes the kids would come on Wednesday night, man, they would just be swearing, using cuss language, whatever. And I would say, do you talk like that when you're with your mom and dad? But first of all, back up and say, well, man, just listening to the words that you're saying here is kind of interesting. Well, I can't help it. I just can't help it. Anybody ever heard that before when somebody swears? Well, I just can't help it. So then I would say, well, do you talk like that in front of your parents? No way, they'd kill me. Oh, so you can help it. See, they've just become different people to different groups of people. So the third one is this. Number 3, do your friends make you feel pressure to compromise? Do the friends that you have, do they make you feel the pressure to compromise? When you consider doing something that you would never otherwise do, that's a warning to you. If you're in a situation where your friends are influencing you and the influence is going on, there's this alliance and there's this allegiance. And what was sin to you 10 minutes ago suddenly isn't sin anymore. That should be a warning sign to you. Let me ask you this. Whenever you're with a group of friends, wouldn't it be easier to get out of that situation before you get into it rather than trying to get out of it in the midst of it? And if you're feeling the pressure to be something, to do something, to partake in some activity, to take a drag, to have the drink, to try the hit, or to get into the investment, or, nobody else is around, so nobody will see, nobody will know. If you're feeling that temptation, I'm telling you, that should be a warning sign to you that you're bumping against the guardrail. Now, as I'm saying that, I see moms and dads are looking at their teenagers going, you getting this? You getting this? You getting this? Okay, teenagers, look, I'm going to pick on your mom and dad too, so you can look at them and go, you getting this? You getting this? All right, so it goes both ways. Because here's where your mom and dad get affected. Listen, teens, and this is for all of us. Here's another warning sign for you. I'll go, but I won't participate. I'll go, but I won't participate. Here's the temptation for all of you. You know what? You got a group of people that you work with, and we have a good time together, and we work together, and we're always together, and then they want to continue. 5 o'clock comes, or whenever the shift is done, and they're all going to get together at an establishment, okay? Hey, want to go along? Want to come with? Let's come on. And you've said this to yourself, I'll go, but I'm not going to drink. Let me ask you this. For those of you that have made that statement, how has that worked for you? Wouldn't it be easier if before you got in a situation when they said, hey, we're going to get together and we're going to watch this movie, or we're going to get together and we're going to do this activity, or we're going to get together, and wouldn't it be easier if you just said no at the beginning than to be in the middle of the movie and all of a sudden you're bumping the guardrail, boom, 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 and you feel the car button, and to get up at that point in time and say, guys, it was a great time, I'm leaving. Because you know the moment you walk out the door, you know what they're going to say about you, don't you? Okay, so I'm just telling you, these are the warning signs for you. And then you can hang out in the bar if you want to and not drink. But remember what Proverbs 13:20 says? If you hang out with the fools doing the foolish things, you're going to suffer harm. Look, I'm not railing on the whole drinking thing. I'm just trying to tell you I'm your dad this morning, okay? I'm your dad. I'm trying to tell you stuff that you don't want to hear but you need to hear so that you can avoid getting into some wrecks in your life. And the last one is this. Do you have to keep secrets from the people closest to you? Do you have to keep secrets from the people closest to you? Kind of like coming home after a really bad party and hoping mom and dad don't know about the whole arrest thing that went on. You know? Do you have to, put a password on your phone so your spouse doesn't see the text messages? Do you have to kind of be covert about your activity on Friday nights and hope mom and dad don't find out? Is there some emails you're trying to protect? Is there just some people that you're talking to on a regular basis? Students, look, you got friends. Mom and dad forbid you to see the friends, but you're still seeing the friends anyway. Mom and dad, let me just give you a heads up. You can forbid all you want to, but 80% of teenagers are still going to see their friends regardless what you tell them, okay? Because friends are influential and powerful. Acceptance is influential and powerful. And that influence has the power to influence the direction and the course of our lives, whether good or bad. And the greatest tension for us this morning, and we're not sure how to deal with it, is this, that there are some in this place today, you have to have a conversation. There's a conversation that you need to have. You need to have the conversation with the person you're living with, the person you're dating. You got to have a conversation with somebody that you love, but you've been afraid to have the conversation. Do you know why? Because there's emotion involved. It's a heart thing. You've gotten involved emotionally in this circumstance, with this person, in this situation, in this money thing, in this health thing. And I'm telling you, Scripture this morning is challenging us not to have the conversation based on emotion, but based on wisdom. Because wisdom will protect you. So it's not about making an emotional decision this morning. It's about making a wise decision. Don't act on your feelings. Act on wisdom. And here is the why. Here's the crux of the whole thing. So you're saying, Pastor, okay, why is all of this important for me to know? Here's the why. Okay, I'll tell you the why. Because you know what? You're the only Christian in the business place. You're the only Christian in that man camp shack. You're the only Christian in that classroom or in the dormitory. You're the only Christian in that locker room. You're the only Christian in that circle of influence. And here's what's going on. The people around you who profess no relationship with God, they're making choices and they're making decisions on a constant basis because they don't have the information I'm giving you this morning. And as a result of not having that information, their lives are coming to ruin. They're coming to wreck. They're shedding the tears. They're dealing with the ex. They're dealing with the money thing. They're dealing with the sexually transmitted disease. They're dealing with the habit. Their whole world is coming crashing down upon them. But they've been watching you with the guardrails in your life. And when their life comes crashing down, who do they come to? They come to you. That's why it's so important that you have some guardrails.